Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning.
How are you? Good. I know you don't have, I need all 64 of you to say I'm doing the
Well,
best
let's
I
just
can.
say we're above ground, so it's all good.
All right. I'm peachy today. Great. Thank you, Keith. Keith, if you could just keep your video on all day, we could just chat back and forth. That would really help me. Because my kids, they don't want to talk to me.
Well, you can call me. I love to talk. You know, I get lonely sometimes out in Scottsville. So anytime you want to chat, you just hit me up. We're good.
Awesome.
Good morning.
Right. Good morning. I'm gonna get started. Hello, for those that haven't joined us on this little adventure, I'm Rose Markey, and this is the Micro Learning Project. This is episode 4 of 5, where I'm going to continue to share more of the concepts from Brene Brown's Dare to Lead curriculum. So I'm going to turn off my video so you can just pay attention to the slides. And here we go. All right. We know this, and I think most of you would agree, we need braver leaders and a more courageous culture. And so when Brene set out to really understand what were the specific skill sets that underpin brave leadership, she went and researched MBA, EMBA schools. She went to corporations throughout the world in all types of different industries. And when she asked, so what does daring or brave leadership look like? A lot of people said, I don't know. And they started to land around this word or this concept of courage. And so when she asked them, what does courage look like? Again, they had a really hard time kind of explaining I don't know what courage looks like. Well, how do you know you have it? I don't know if you know how you have it. So what she did is she started to realize that she needed to turn the question around kind of on top of itself. And she asked this question: what happens in the absence of brave or courageous leadership? And this is what she found out. And this is a lot of what we cover in the Dare to Lead program and a lot more. We actually start to dig into what's getting in our own way and how we're going to lean into the work of building courage. So imagine if we worked in an organization whereby everybody did just this. And what you're seeing are the barriers to courage. And look at what's at the very top of that list: tough conversations, which is what we're going to cover today. So we know that last time we talked, if you were able to join us, we talked about the armoring up process at one point. We talked about how our emotions drive the self-protection where we armor up or we start to build walls. And today I want to introduce you to the idea of what Brene refers to as grounded confidence and rumbling skills. So if we think back to that arena metaphor that we've been using, it's as if when you go into the arena to do something brave, that we're not suggesting that you go in with absolutely nothing, right? Like there's times where I'm thinking, I just would be glad to have a slingshot at this point. What we're suggesting is that you take in grounded confidence and your values. So one of the first things that happens is when we see and hear something, we make something up. And we tell ourselves a story. And Brene calls this the SFD. And if there's little ones listening, you want to put yourself on mute. I'm going to use a dicey word here. SFD stands for shitty first draft. Or maybe if I'm in a better, more PC setting, I might call that a stormy first draft. But to help illustrate this, what happens is you see and hear something, you tell yourself a story, that creates an emotion, and then you take action. And so to help tee this up for you, think about, as we talked about the arena metaphor, think about those times when you've tried to do or attempt to do something brave and shame started to take over, or when you feel that you've been hooked by emotion or triggered, or you've felt wronged or misunderstood, right? What we want to learn to do is to name it and to realize what's happening to us. So if you think about a face down in the arena moment, such as a current or a past fall, or what you might call a failure, there's some prompts that you see on the slide here. Like, what's the first thing that you want to do? What are you thinking? What are your emotions, your beliefs? What's happening with your body? What actions are you taking? And typically that SFD, that stormy first draft, is your unedited, unfiltered story that you make up or start telling yourself. And some of us, if you're like me, we tend to share that SFD with others. Typically, an SFD, or that stormy first draft, is honest, it's unfiltered, it's unedited, and possibly unshareable. And so as we start to think about that SFD and the story that we're telling ourselves, we want to start these rumble skills. And I'll explain what a rumble is in a minute. But as we start to rumble with what's going on and to question and start asking ourselves some real hard questions, is we want to examine or check our conspiracies and confabulations. So this might be new wording for you, or it might not be. A conspiracy is a story that we make up based on limited real data or imagined data or an emotionally satisfying version of reality. A confabulation are lies that are told honestly. So I really believe this to be true, even though I might not have any data or facts to support it. So a confabulation, what we do is we replace missing information. In other words, we fill in the gaps with something false that we actually believe to be true. And typically, it's just our opinion. So these might not be new terms for you, but they're not, and they're not something that we're necessarily that we do talk about openly. But I want you to start thinking about this idea of grounded confidence and rumble skills and curiosity, and then how to practice those. So this idea of a rumble, this is probably new lingo or vernacular for you, but as the Dare to Lead community grows, people are using these terms and the skills associated with the curriculum to improve their work environment and experience. The word rumble has become more than just a West Side Story way to say, hey, let's have a real conversation, even if it's tough. It actually becomes a serious intention and a behavioral cue or reminder. So here's what a rumble is. It's a discussion, conversation, or meeting that's defined by a commitment to, and check all this out, lean into the vulnerability, to stay curious and generous, in other words, giving people the benefit of the doubt and ourselves, to stick with the messy middle of problem identification and solving the problem, to take a break and circle back when necessary, to be fearless in owning our parts, and to listen with the same passion with which we want to be heard. So we use the word rumble as a cue on how we want to show up with an open heart and an open mind so that we can serve the work and each other, not just our egos. I think this is particularly important work. It has been forever. Some of us have been waiting for this work for a long time, and I think it is particularly important right now. So what I want to share with you are what are called rumble starters, and these are like lead-in, curiosity lead-ins. This might be how you'd start a conversation. This is how we start to get curious, and I'm going to give you a list of ways to get the curiosity conversation started by acknowledging our part with humility and asking questions. So rumble starters, here's some scenarios this might work in, or it will. There's no might about it. Maybe somebody doesn't deliver on what they said they would. Maybe somebody said something accusatory. Somebody didn't tell the truth. Someone's performance is declining. Maybe somebody said something derogatory about someone else or towards you. Or maybe when we keep going around in circles. So this is a list of what we call rumble starters. So imagine if you're seeking clarification or trying to figure out what's going on or to get more information or get curious, these are great ways to start the conversation. Coming right out of the gate and saying, this is the story I make up, and then share the story you've made up. I'm curious about. Tell me more. That's not my experience. Instead of saying you're wrong about him, her, them, this, etc. Maybe start off saying, I'm wondering, help me understand, or walk me through, or we're both dug in. Tell me about your passion around this. Tell me why this doesn't fit or work for you. How about using, I'm working from these assumptions. What about you? And lastly, sometimes we just have to come out and ask the question, what problem are we trying to solve? So my question for you is, do any of these feel natural to you? And would you be willing to use one maybe the next time you're in need of clarification or find yourself at an impasse? The next thing I want to share are Rumble tools. These tools are helpful when you're trying to understand what's going on and to seek or provide clarification. So as I go through these, I want you to just kind of think to yourself, do any of these sound appealing to you? And are you willing to try them in the coming days or weeks? So if I'm not sure what's going on here, this is a great question. What's my part? What does support look like? If somebody's not feeling supported and they haven't really thought about what support looks like to them, this is a great question. What does support look like for you? What are key learnings we can take from this? Are there any stealth intentions that we need to surface and name? And when we use the term stealth intention and the next one, stealth expectations that drive us, that just means that sometimes we haven't really thought about what is my intent. It might be just under the surface or it might be buried deep, but we've got to bring that up so that we get some clarity around it. Is there a horizon conflict at play here? And horizon conflict is when sometimes I might be reporting to or working within a chain of command, and the leaders at the very top, their horizon is very outward facing, where my horizon, where a lot of the work gets done, might be more inward facing. And again, I would explain much more of that when I get more than 15 minutes and we're in the program together. The idea of paint done, this is huge. So oftentimes we're on a project or a committee or we're working on something, something's been passed down to us and we haven't taken the time to really get clear on what does done look like? What's the finish line? How are we going to know we got there? The idea of task, that's an acronym that stands for T, who owns the task? A, do they have the authority to be held accountable? S, do we agree that they are set up for success, meaning time, resources, and clarity? And C, do we have a checklist on what needs to happen to accomplish the task? There's also a concept called turn and learn that we'll talk about in the program in terms of let's check out, are we all thinking that we can achieve this by a certain date or what this looks like without being influenced by going with whatever the leader says or whatever the most influential people say? Or do we need to check our gritty facts and gritty faith, meaning those things that we're really stuck in? And then sometimes we need to just take a time out, walk away from it, think, process, and then come back. One thing I want to talk about SFDs or those shitty or stormy first drafts is that oftentimes our big emotions drive our SFDs. And so when we think about anxiety, this is the time, and we'll talk about this in the program, where are people over-functioning or under-functioning when they're in and experiencing anxiety? The more difficult it is for us to articulate our experience of loss, longing, and feeling lost to those people around us, the more disconnected and alone we feel in our grief. Also, what I want to say about forgiveness is that in order for forgiveness to happen, something has to die. And if you make a choice to forgive, you have to face into the pain. You simply have to hurt. And so sometimes when we go through this work, there's almost an epiphany for people where they start to realize that I might have to forgive or give up on expectations, dreams, a relationship, hopes, being right, or maybe the idea that we can do what's in our hearts and still retain the support and or approval of others. Okay, I know that was fast. I've gone through a ton of stuff. I'm at 9:45. Just to give you a preview, tomorrow, our last episode in the Dare to Lead micro learning project series is this idea of living big. And so here's the question I want you to ponder before we come back tomorrow morning. Do you believe that people are doing the very best they can? We're going to discuss what this means and the barriers that keep us from accepting our best selves and the best of others. We'd love to get your feedback, so please take a moment and provide us feedback. You can use this QR code that you see on the right hand of your screen. You can use the link that's in the chat feature. I'll stay on for a few minutes if you need anything from me. Thank you. Keep your chin up. Have a great day and be safe out there.
And Katie, I just saw your comment in the chat, and we hope to have these on the website, the recorded versions, soon. We will let you guys know when they are out.
Awesome.